Welcome to the Zono Sports Show, where you know Zonos. MLK Day was just a few days ago. We had to celebrate the holiday with a lot of sporting events. We know that basketball comes on TV during this time of the year. They call it the dog days in January in the NBA. But starting off, I have a dream that someday someone could come along as good as Steph Curry. Now, who's that guy? Trae Young is the guy that all the kids are talking about these days because he's got a jumper, because he can facilitate and pass the ball, get it to the point forward. If they have one, Kadeem Lattin on Oklahoma's roster. However, Trae Young last night had a tough game. 14 game win streak of 14 game, 25-point game streak that Trae Young's been dropping per game the past 14 games. However, the streak ended last night against Kansas State, who plays phenomenal defense. Bruce Weber, I didn't think he could bring that same type of defense over from Illinois to Kansas State, but he has done that. 8 turnovers in the first half for Trae Young, 12 for the entire game. Now, when you think about this Oklahoma offense and this team in general, as far as Sooner basketball goes, over 60% of their offense in a lot of these games comes from Trae offense, whether he's distributing the ball or whether he's shooting the ball, scoring and assists. That's how Trae Young helps this offense go. Now, Oklahoma, I think that they'll be there in March. However, if Trae Young can consistently have performances like this, like the ones that he's had, the 14-game, 25-point streak, then they'll continue to lose games when he doesn't perform well, which is why they lost last night. What was it, 87-69? When do we see Oklahoma score 69 points? That means that the defense limited Trae Young, which is what we saw in the West Virginia game. Javon Carter, he's shown that he's an elite point guard for West Virginia, so make sure you keep up with that, West Virginia. Also, Kansas finally got a win there the other night. Congrats to them. Now, college football. Sad news out of Pullman, Washington today. Yesterday evening, their quarterback, who was the backup this year behind Luke Falk, Tyler Hilinski, was found dead in his dorm room yesterday with an apparent gunshot wound that was self-inflicted. He was a projected starter for next year. He played in the bowl game against Michigan State, in which Washington State lost. He's got a younger brother, Ryan Hilinski, who's regarded as a top prospect by numerous colleges across the country. Now, they also say that in these reports that he left a suicide note. Now, let me start off before I jump into this topic by saying condolences out to his family. It's sad when anything like this happens to a young person. So I definitely hope that they stay blessed and continue to just grieve in a way that honors him and they can remember the best things about Mr. Tyler Hilinski. Now, the thing that I would like to say is I look at this situation and it's only fitting for me as a journalist to wonder what exactly was on the note. Now, the reason I might wonder what's on the note and what it might say is because Mike Leach had issues at Texas Tech with relations among players. He allegedly locked a receiver in a closet for not performing or something like that in practice, but that receiver, that investigation came to light, so that's when Mike Leach was fired from Texas Tech for that entire incident that was swirling around the program. The fact that a player was locked in the closet for not running routes right or not getting some football information or something right, so he was punished that way. Now, you would think after an allegation like that Mike Leach would definitely watch the way that he handles this program in the future, and I'm sure he has. However, situations like that lead me to only think, what could have been going on? Was there anything going on with football? I hope there wasn't anything going on with football. But if there was, could we see the end of Mike Leach? We'll have to see and wait and see what the reports are coming out. He did release a statement sending out condolences to the young man's family, Mr. Hilinski. We'll see what Washington State does next year, but obviously after something like this, they've definitely got to pick themselves up, dust themselves off, and try to go on. So sad news about Mr. Tyler Hilinski. NBA MLK Day, Cavs beat the Warriors. Warriors beat the Cavs 118-108. Now, when I watch this game, it looks as though the Warriors, when healthy, are light years beyond the Cleveland Cavaliers. They brought the addition of Isaiah Thomas. Whoopie-doo. That's great. What has actually happened? What have we seen on the floor come to fruition? Well, we saw the other night that Cleveland, they can put as much scoring as they want on the floor, but they're just older. They look bad out there. They can't run with those young deers on Golden State. Chef Curry, KD, Draymond, Iggy. Golden State is heads above where Cleveland wants to be, and they've tried to make moves all year to put themselves in position. And even after this game, Cleveland players, which I highly frown upon, voiced their frustration to multiple sources post-game about the fact that they're frustrated with where the Cavs are. They're older. They've got guys playing below the rim. They're just not getting the production they want defensively in that entire roster. So they've got to make some changes. Maybe get a DeAndre Jordan. Bring somebody in who it can definitely stand in the middle and stop the other team from scoring. Or maybe they could, I don't know, bring in another scorer, perhaps, some type of point forward that they could add to that roster. But they've got to do something to supplement what Golden State has coming for them if they do, in fact, meet them in the finals. Because right now, the way it looks, it doesn't even look like that Cleveland will be in the finals. So I definitely think that they should figure out some adjustments to make within this Cleveland roster before the end of the 2018 season. Because LeBron, if you ask me right now, as it currently stands, he should leave. Pack the bags and hit the road, Jack. And don't come back. No more LeBron. The Rockets and Clippers was chippy the other night. The Clippers actually got that win. Sweet Lou Williams, everybody's been talking about, oh, he should be an all-star. He did drop 50 against the Warriors last week, but people have said, oh, he should be an all-star. The Clippers, they have a great roster this year because they've got players who are playing together. They're playing as one. They're playing tougher. And people may wonder whether or not Chris Paul leaving has contributed to their new attitude, their newfound sense of self. Well, Blake Griffin versus Chris Paul the other night, they were chirping back and forth on the court. Trevor Ariza going back and forth with Austin Rivers as well. Now, after the game is what was really surprising. After the game, you had Chris Paul, James Harden, several members of the Rockets actually go and seek out the Los Angeles Clippers, actually made their way into their locker room through a back entrance. I don't know what kind of tunnels that Chris Paul knows about in L.A., but he was there for several years, so I'm sure he knows how to get into a locker room if he wants to. They actually went and tried to confront Blake Griffin and Austin Rivers. Now, that's a bad look for Chris Paul because he is the leader of the NBA Players Association. He is the voice behind that. So politically speaking, not a good move. But obviously, there were some cultural things within the Clippers organization that Chris Paul didn't like, which is why he didn't want to play for Doc Rivers. I've heard that there was a little nepotism involved with his son, which, don't get me wrong, Austin Rivers is a phenomenal NBA player, or he wouldn't be there. He can definitely score, create his own shot. He can facilitate, get the ball to whoever he needs to get it to. So I'm not going to sit here and say he doesn't belong in the NBA, but Doc Rivers clearly wants him on the Clippers, right? So I look at this entire incident and say that this is just Chris Paul's frustration with how everything went down in L.A. finally festering to the surface. The relationship between him and Blake Griffin is not what it seemed. And he's maybe not Uncle Blake to Chris Paul's kids anymore. I don't know. But those State Farm commercials, they don't have the same feel. They just don't. And maybe it's just me. But if the Rockets and Clippers meet in the playoffs, I'm really interested in seeing how that series could go because the Rockets are currently the 2 seed, Clippers the 7. So they would meet if the playoffs started today, but a lot of that could change. But that would definitely maybe be a good series. NFL-wise, Jags upset the Steelers at home. Now, there was a look ahead to the New England Patriots, I want to say, in Pittsburgh. And that's not what you do. You got to respect your opponent every single week. They didn't do that. October 9th, they got whooped by the Jags. This past weekend, they got whooped by the Jags in the divisional round. Jalen Ramsey's clearly becoming a star. He knocks passes down, gets interceptions, he closes out games, he talks the talk, and he's trying to walk the walk. So this new Deion Sanders 2.0 kind of, I don't know. Jalen Ramsey is somebody who leads that Jacksonville defense, and Calais Campbell, Malik Jackson, all those guys on the D-line, Telvin Smith, Miles Jack, that defense in Jacksonville, they have shown that they can play with the best of them. I look forward to seeing what happens in New England. Big Ben showed that he can still become a stat stuffer when he needs to be. However, this wasn't just a stat stuffer performance. The Steelers got down early. They lost 45-42, but he threw for 469, 5 TDs. So come on back, Ben. Come on back and play. Don't retire. Come on back. You did it against the Jags at Jacksonville. So I'll give them a little bit of credit for fighting back, but the Steelers, they've got some retooling to do in their locker room. I think Mike Tomlin needs to get a better grasp of the comments that come out of this locker room, the things that people are saying. I think it's a too laissez-faire approach, laissez-faire, however you want to say that. I think it's too much of a hands-free, do what you need to do, say what you want to say approach in that locker room, which is why they have all the controversy. The Vikings surprised the Saints 29-24. Breeze, he shouldn't retire yet, 25 for 40, 294 yards, 3 TDs, 2 picks. He brought the Saints back in the second half. They were down, 17-0 at halftime, and he found a way to storm back and take a 24-23 lead late. Stefon Diggs is quickly becoming a star in Minnesota. We all remember Randy Moss, but the premier receiver right now is Mr. Stefon Diggs. 6 receptions, 137 yards, and the one TD that counted most he caught at the end of the game, ran it in for a touchdown pass. Marcus Williams, who missed a tackle because he had his head down. Kids, keep your head up. Do not duck your head when you try to tackle a guy because you can get hurt or you won't make a play. They're dubbing this the Minnesota Miracle. So I look forward to seeing whether or not they can have some more miracles this upcoming weekend in Philadelphia. We shall see. NFC Championship, Minnesota versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Can Nick Foles solve this defense like he did Atlanta? I'm not particularly sure because in my mind, I have a reputation for Nick Foles already in my mind, and I'm sure others do. He's got to show me. Can he do it? Can he do it against this Minnesota Vikings defense? Can he do it? And can the Vikings play in the cold? They're going to be out there with a bunch of underdog masks on, the Philadelphia fans. That's a big story right now. And that could create a safety situation because with all those masks on, you wonder, does that create an opportunity for something bad to happen? Fights, terrorism. So may want to be careful with that, Philadelphia. Now, also, the AFC Championship, Jaguars versus Patriots this weekend. And I didn't mention, I think that the Minnesota Vikings will win the NFC Championship and be right back at the crib playing for the Super Bowl. So give me the Vikings in the NFC Championship for sure. AFC Championship, Jaguars and Patriots. Leonard Fournette and Blake Bortles, they must play flawless. They must play like they played in Pittsburgh. Blake Bortles, no picks, 200-plus yards passing. And Leonard Fournette, what did he have, about 12 carries, 100-and-something yards rushing? They have to play like that if they want to go into Foxborough, Gillette Stadium, and get something magnificent done, get something unprecedented done, and beat the New England Patriots in the AFC Championship at their crib. So if they can do that, I'll say that this Jacksonville team is definitely for real. I think they are contenders, but you can't be a pretender going into Foxborough and playing against Tom Brady. So that being said, I'm not going to go against Tom Brady. Give me the Patriots and the Vikings in the Super Bowl in Minnesota for another epic showdown between Brady and whoever's on the NFC side. Can he get, number 6? We shall see. Now, next show, we will recap championship weekend and talk about all the things that happened. Why did they lose that game? Why did they win that game? Make sure you keep watching the Zono Sports Show because I love delivering the sports. Thank you for watching the Zono Sports Show, where you know Zonos.